Have you ever heard a story so terrifying that it clings to you, like a shadow you can't shake? A tale so dark that even the elders whisper it only in hushed tones, afraid the very words might summon it. That's the story of the wicked prince, a man whose cruelty cursed not just himself, but the very land he ruled. Most believe it's just a folktale meant to scare children into obedience. But I know better. I know, because I met him. The prince isn't just a story. He's real. And if you think this is some old legend, some harmless bedtime tale, then let me tell you what happened to me. It was supposed to be a simple errand. My mother was sick, and I had no choice but to fetch the herbs she needed. The forest was the quickest way. Everyone warned me not to go. The prince walks there, they said. Once you step in, you may never come out. But I was desperate. Desperation makes you do foolish things. And that's how it all began. No one enters the forest after dusk or day. The prince claims all who cross his path. He is not like us, he is not even human anymore. He'll toy with you first, make you see things you fear most, and then, well, no one who's met him can tell the tale. It's just a story. How many times have we been scared by these tales, only to find they're nothing but old superstitions? Believe what you want. But remember this, fear keeps us alive. If you enter that forest, you'll find out for yourself why the prince's name is spoken only in whispers. They said not to go. They warned me about the prince. But warnings only make you more curious, don't they? And curiosity, well, it's a dangerous thing. As I stares into the darkening forest, a faint breeze carries a low, whispering sound. I hesitate, glancing at the basket in her hand. The thought of my mother's frail body flashes through my mind. It's just a shortcut. The elders are wrong. I've walked this path before, and nothing ever happened. I'll be quick. The further I walked, the more I felt it. The forest wasn't just a place. It was something alive. Watching me. Testing me. But I told myself it was just my imagination. After all, I wasn't a child anymore. I wasn't afraid of the dark. Just the wind. It's just the wind. But as I turn back toward the path, something catches her eye, a faint, glowing symbol carved into the bark of a nearby tree. It pulses with a soft, eerie light, and the whispers grow louder. That's when I should have turned back. That's when I should have run. But I didn't. Curiosity is a dangerous thing, remember? And I was too stubborn to let fear win. I reaches out hesitantly, my fingers brushing against the glowing symbol. The whispers stop abruptly, replaced by a heavy silence. At first, I thought it was just the wind. But then I heard it, a faint whisper, too soft to understand, but impossible to ignore. It felt like the forest was breathing, like it was alive. And then, the hoofbeats began. Hoofbeats. Slow, deliberate, and getting louder. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might burst. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. It was as if the forest itself was holding me there, forcing me to face whatever was coming. And then I saw him. The wicked prince. He wasn't just a man, he was something else, something not of this world. His presence sucked the air from my lungs, and his voice made my blood turn to ice. The prince came into view, tall and imposing on his black horse, with a look that could chill even the bravest. His eyes were dark, piercing, and empty, like a well with no bottom. His lips were thin, twisted into a cruel smirk. They said he had a taste for cruelty, that he found pleasure in people's pain. I tried to avert my gaze, but he had already seen me. "You there," he called, his voice cold and sharp. "Come closer." My heart pounded, but I had no choice. Defying him would mean certain punishment, perhaps worse. I took a hesitant step forward, feeling the weight of his gaze settle on me like a dark shadow. "What are you doing out here alone?" he asked, though his tone made it clear he didn't care about my answer. He was merely toying with me, like a cat with a trapped bird. "I am heading home, my lord," I stammered, bowing my head. He laughed, a hollow, joyless sound. "A good night for a walk, isn't it?" His words felt wrong. The air was thick, and a strange silence had fallen around us. I glanced around, noticing that even the crickets had stopped chirping. It was as if the forest itself feared him. Suddenly, he dismounted and took a step toward me, his eyes gleaming with something dark and sinister. "Tell me," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper, "do you know the legend of the dark forest?" I shook my head, afraid to speak. He took pleasure in my fear, a twisted smile curling on his lips. "They say," he began, "that if someone crosses into the heart of the forest, they'll find themselves face to face with their deepest fears." He leaned closer, his cold breath brushing against my face. "Would you like to find out if it's true?" Before I could react, he grabbed my wrist, his grip like iron. He led me off the path, deeper into the forest. My heart raced, but I knew better than to resist. The prince's power was unmatched, no one who defied him ever returned. The trees grew thicker, twisting into eerie shapes as the last light of day faded. Shadows stretched across the ground, twisting and curling like dark fingers. I felt the weight of the forest pressing in on me, a suffocating presence that seemed to seep into my bones. Then, we reached a small clearing. The prince released my wrist and stepped back, watching me with a cruel glint in his eyes. "Stand here," he commanded. "Don't move." I stood rooted to the spot, too terrified to disobey. The forest seemed to come alive around me. Shadows shifted, and strange whispers filled the air, like the voices of lost souls. I glanced at the prince, but he only watched me, enjoying my fear. And then I saw it, a figure emerging from the darkness, shrouded in mist. Its face was twisted and hollow, like a mask of my own fears brought to life. I wanted to run, but my legs were frozen in place. "Welcome to the heart of the forest," the prince sneered. "Here, your soul is laid bare. There's no escape from what you see." I could feel the figure drawing closer, its icy breath prickling my skin. The prince's laughter echoed around me, blending with the whispers of the forest. I was trapped, lost in a nightmare from which there was no waking. The figure reached out a hand, cold as death, and I felt its fingers brush against my skin. In that moment, I saw flashes of my darkest memories, my deepest regrets, all the things I had tried to bury. They were laid bare before me, inescapable and relentless. The prince watched, savoring every moment of my torment. "Fear is a powerful thing," he murmured. "And it's something I know well." I don't remember how long I stood there, trapped in my own mind, lost in the maze of my fears. Time had no meaning in that place. Eventually, the figure withdrew, fading back into the darkness, but the chill lingered in my bones. The prince finally spoke, his voice low and mocking. "You're free to go, if you can still find your way." I stumbled back the way we'd come, my body trembling, my mind numb. When I finally reached the path, I broke into a run, not stopping until I was safely home. The forest had returned to normal, but the memory of that night haunted me.